good people, lifter-uppers. Welcome to the Cancer and Comedy Podcast. This is the podcast where we look to offer a sense of hope and humor for people impacted by cancer or other bad things in their life. I'm Dr. Brad Miller, and today we're talking with an incredible person. Her name is Kate McGlynn, but she's also known as Katy Bee. She comes from a professional clown background, but what I want to talk to you about here today is how she notices things. She is what I might call a professional noticer. Is that not too long ago, Katy noticed that people were not all that happy in this world. They were kind of struggling with frustration and anger and division and other things happening in their life. And she said, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to spread some joy. I'm going to go with joy first. So, Katy, welcome to our conversation here today. Is that an accurate description of what you do?
Yeah, that's great, Brad. I like that. That's impressive that you've collected that from just doing your research.
Well, it's a joy. It is indeed a joy to have you with us. And your website that we're talking about here today is joyfirst.org, where you're looking to bring joy to others. But I want to just ask you, first of all, what's something that's brought some joy into your life recently and in recent days? What's something put a smile on your face or brought some joy into your life?
Oh, I'll tell you, I had an amazing weekend. So Joy First actually showed up at a fashion show nearby in Superior, Arizona, and did a little comic relief and gave some slide whistles and kazoos away to the audience. And that was fun. And then from there, I was honored to be able to witness a small part of the Apache sunrise ceremony, which is where young girls are taken through a ceremony to become women. And I watched this 13-year-old girl and her cohort of supporters dance for 6 hours on Saturday. That was just amazing. I watched her be blessed. I watched her bless babies and other people in her community. And she was supported by 2 other women. I mean, it was just I'm so looking forward to more because I'm really working toward connecting more with the Apache community. And then what finally brought me a little more joy was I went to the hot spring. And so I had a soak. And that was absolutely
awesome.
Joyful.
Well, I love what you're sharing there, Katy, because you're talking about transformation that comes with when we allow joy to come into our lives, that you talked about the transformation that happened with the folks who you served in the event that you did, the transformation of the young woman, the transformation of the people around her, and then you had some little personal R&R and transformation to go do the hot springs. That's good. Do you believe this do you believe joy can bring some positive transformation to people who may need a little interjection of some joy in their life?
Oh, absolutely. I believe that we all have stuff. I know for a fact that each of us has stuff we're dealing with every day that we possibly are grocery shopping, ruminating about, thinking and processing and going through all of this emotional ups and downs and whatever. But like what Joy First does is we come in, we break that capsule open and allow for something different, which is recognition, gratitude, and acknowledgement for simply being alive.
That's awesome.
The goal is to just break that capsule open for a minute so that we can all realize that that capsule can stay open, but we have to learn how to do it.
I love the way you put that. Break open the capsule. It'd be kind of like, I've heard the phrase, you can't make an omelet unless you break some eggs. You got to, take a little bit of a risk, a little bit of, get out of the norms, break the patterns there in order to have some joy in your life. But it seems to me, Katy, that you've had some of that happen in your own life that led you eventually to form this organization, joyfirst.org. Tell us a little bit about the origin story, and maybe there have been some breaking of capsules, as it were, for you that kind of was the defining moment for you to start this organization. Tell us a little bit about the origin story there.
Oh, so Joy First Foundation came out of the Ukraine war, actually. So we were in COVID, and the Ukrainian war started, and I worked with a group called Voices of Peace. And we were an international group that created online support sessions for Ukrainian refugees. And we offered meditation, laughter yoga, and just some opportunities to do improv and kind of let your feelings out. And then the international folks offered counseling after the fact to these refugees. And we got people from around the world. We had some African refugees as well show up. And we happened to be in a meeting, and somebody said, we need to start a nonprofit. And I said, I know what it's called. I heard it in my meditation this morning. I had a rumination of joy first, joy first, joy first. And that's how the name happened. And yeah, it really started out of trying to be helpful in the middle of war and the crisis.
What a powerful imagery that is. So tell me then, what is it? You've said some of what you do, but I also know a part of this is you actually went on a joy tour, and you really got serious about this. Tell me about the joy tour, about the Jeep, and about the trailer, and about how you really you invested in this, you engaged in this. This was not just an idea for you, just kind of a one-off thing or just kind of a short period of time. You've jumped in full force in this. Tell me about those next steps for you.
Absolutely. So I had purchased an 8-foot runaway trailer, which are made in Florida, and they're tiny, right? And I put it behind my Jeep and started on the tour of joy, which really was about initially thanking grocery workers, doctors, nurses, service people that were essential workers during COVID. And as we remember, grocery workers were spit on sometimes. They were treated pretty badly at times.
Terrible.
During COVID. So my first initial service was to offer gratitude and acknowledgement to those folks that put up with what they did put up with and then continued to work. And that led into people hiring me or donating in order for me to go specifically to someone that they wanted to bring joy to, which turned out to be a quadriplegic young man who was hit by a car, and his family had been struck with tragedy. And so we basically did kind of an impromptu birthday party when there wasn't a birthday. So I guess we call that an unbirthday party.
Yeah, okay.
And the neighbors, and gave him like a few hours of joy with his family, reporting the fact that they had made it through this crisis.
That's amazing that you shared that in that transformative moment there. And it sounds like you brought in your expertise and family gathered. But tell me, was there some tactic or some action or some practice that maybe you're able to apply here that maybe could be helpful to our lifter-uppers here, that they could use in their life, that they could apply something here? It's one thing, we get together and we want to be helpful. We might sing happy birthday to the person in that situation. But what are some things that you teach or that you do that are helpful to people?
Well, I teach people that giving a compliment to a stranger means more than you could possibly realize. That's one thing. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that joy is reciprocal. So when I give, I also receive. Mm-hmm. And so when I walk up to a stranger and I give gratitude and acknowledgement, and I give little things like cards that say, thanks for being on Earth today.
Yeah.
Things like that. And in that, we start to kind of connect. I walk up and say, thanks for being alive today. Thank you for being on Earth today. Thank you for just being you and making it through all that you've made it through in your life. And a lot of times what happens is they go, phew, you have no idea. Or they start telling me their story. Yeah. And I listen.
And these are strangers in many cases, right? These are people you're just encountering in your travels.
Absolute random, spontaneous strangers.
Yeah.
Picked from my gut that says that person needs this.
Give me a specific person. Give me a kind of set the setting for a person you encountered that really kind of that surprised them, that somebody would encounter them and offer them to say, hey, thank you for being on Earth today or something like that. Tell me a story about that particular person that you encountered.
Oh my gosh. I will say that I have over probably at this point 6,000 joyful moments is what these are called.
Wow.
And 4 people have said no. I will say that in 2.5 years of being on tour or more. Now we're looking at about 3 years. So one particular story is one of my favorites. I was in Walmart and I was told I got the impulse to approach this young man in the electronics department. And he was jovial and jovial and happy to help. And I gave him a little light. At that time I was giving out these little finger lights. And he said, I said, thanks for being alive today. I got close to him, not too close, but close enough to look him in the eye. And you could see he was getting emotional. And after I finished the phrases, he said, I could tell something was wrong. I said, do you want to talk about it? And he said, yes. But this was all happening on camera, which he gave permission for. But at that point, he said, please turn off the camera. And then as he asked us to turn off the camera, he said, I really, really need this. Turned off the camera. And he told me about how his mother was homeless. And he was working at Walmart, 2 jobs actually, trying to get her out of homelessness. And he was so brave that he told me the whole story. And all I could really do was offer support because we don't have tons of money,
right?
To get the mother out of homelessness or anything like that at this very point, right? So I gave him a hug and I said, you matter more than you know, and this will come back around for you. And, I gave him best wishes. And we bonded in that moment. And then I walked away and I thought to myself, does Walmart know that he's going through this?
Yeah.
That was my big question as I left. Does Walmart know? And it's certainly none of my business to tell Walmart. But can he tell Walmart and still keep his job? These questions about how we're cared for as employees.
Sure. It goes to workplace environment. It goes to HR issues, if you will, in companies. And what a great story, because I think let's just assume a good thing that this young person, this young Walmart guy in the electronics department, went and shared something else good to maybe one of his coworkers at the break room at the back, just something like that. And maybe, just maybe, that little joy can be viral. I assume that may be a part of what your vision is here. And then, so that can be possibly transformative to the workplace at the Walmart in whatever town you found yourself at. But do you think maybe if we have this type of interjection of joy into the rough patches, the sad places, the difficult people's life, it can be transformative in workplaces, in schools, in hospitals, in churches, in social settings, in politics, in social orders. Is it really possible, given the division and all the nasty stuff that's out there, for joy to be transformative? I know it's a little big picture question that was sparked by this one incident, but just go with it for a second. Do you think that's a realistic possibility?
Actually, I crossed the country 3 times, and I stayed with other humorists and social therapists all over the country and brought them with me to do joyful moments. It would be me and someone else. And I will tell you that absolutely, we didn't talk about politics. Politics never came up, but everyone was transformed by doing these joyful moments. Everyone.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So in a way, you have interjected this humor and this joy, this sense of well-being that comes with that into people's places. So let's just say, I'm going to use a phrase here, heart sick. You've heard that term. People are heart sick, and that can sometimes be manifested into sickness, physical illness, that kind of thing. So if you were a joy doctor, as it were, and able to kind of give a prescription of joy to help the heart sick, what would your dose be? What would your prescription be? What would that? What would you write out here as your prescription there?
I would say start with 10 minutes of gratitude meditation, and then find friends to laugh with. Watch something funny. Make sure you laugh so you're getting your endorphins, your serotonin, your dopamine up there. Laughter is a chemical process, so is smiling. You can also hum. You can sing to yourself. All of that raises the good chemicals, the happy chemicals, and lowers the cortisol. And then play. Have some fun. Because we're not too old ever to have fun.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I want to go back and speak about the virility, the viral possibility of joy.
Yes, please.
So we have hashtag joy it forward. And what that means is a lot of times, because it's so reciprocal, I give someone a moment of joy. And a lot of times I give them extra cards, extra little things that they can give away too.
Okay.
And then I receive by giving. And that doesn't always come up in the conversation, but I will say it right here. When you give a compliment, when you give some recognition to someone, you thank your grocery person that's checking you out. I mean, I do it all the time. And the person who's checking out my groceries says, man, I really needed that. Thank you.
Right.
And if we can imagine that every single person standing in front of us will respond with, boy, I sure needed that today. Thanks.
That's awesome. And a big piece of this, though, I think, Katie, I just want to talk about this first. This virility, virality becomes through the action that you took to not only get in your Jeep and drive up places, but to encounter people where they're at, whether it's in Walmart or someplace else, and to engage with them. And that is overcoming some fear there on your part personally and the people you're with, and also to break down a few barriers. So tell me a little bit about facing fear of the unknown, of rejection, of, how laughter you can have a nervous laugh, that kind of deal, that you could have a joyous laugh, But tell me a little bit about, I know you teach some about this, how we can face some of these fears of the unknown, and how really, it seems to me you've had more joy than bad stuff come out of that. Is that right?
Yeah, I will start by saying I was a street performer in Europe.
Okay.
So my living came from passing the hat. So if you are uncomfortable talking to strangers or doing a show in front of strangers,
you're not going to eat then, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I've had a little practice, but science has shown us that actually our fear is pretty unwarranted. We are afraid of not being accepted. We're afraid of our partner in the conversation not being interested in what we have to say. Actually, once people take the risk and try to have a stranger conversation, they actually feel better, and it makes it easier in the future. And 9 times out of 10, and that's not a scientific amount, but my guess is 9 times out of 10, it's a better outcome than what you thought was going to happen.
Yeah. And as you said, then that not only is good for the person you're approaching, it's good for you, right? Good.
Yeah. And one of the things I mentioned in one of my talks was now 3 years in, something I've noticed is there's this little corner of the eye. Let me see if I can get here. This part of the eye will change.
Mm.
And when I see that change, I know I've gotten deeper. And I've seen it so many times. I've had people with walls up, and I approach, and they're skeptical, and I say, I'm not asking for anything, I'm just giving. And then I start the little standing ovation, and I see that happen, and I know we hit an important moment.
Wow, that's a real physiological manifestation of what you're experiencing. And I might just call it the twinkle in the eye, the twinkle in the eye and if you can approach someone with kind of that connection, eye to eye, face to face, person to person, that is open and not threatening, that's a good thing. I can break down some barriers there. And it seems to me, Katie, see what you think. This almost goes, if we talk about, some people say the eyes are reflections of the soul, for instance, that this goes to kind of a metaphysical or spiritual plane in some regards. Would you say that there is at least an aspect of this that goes to some sort of a spiritual aspect, that it goes to people's hearts and minds and souls?
No question in my mind.
Yeah.
I believe that at this point, our bodies are vibrating, right? And our ears are the receptacle of vibration. And if we're vibrating and our ears are vibrating, then by bringing some of this, there's an increase in vibration. And I know that might sound a little bit cheesy. I see it as an uplift. I see it as a raising someone up. And much like improv, where one of the rules is to make your partner look good, it's based on that principle.
Okay.
So I truly believe that part of this is, if we're not spiritually connected, then we're in this space of doubt and fear, and we don't, people are just in their daily grind. And part of what this does is enable and open, I call it a crack in the door.
That's awesome.
So that you can open it wider yourself.
Yeah.
All I'm doing is showing you it can be opened.
Well, I think what we're talking about here is how that crack in the door, and joy, humor can be one way of doing that. There's other ways of doing it too. It can be poignancy, it can be emotion, it can be tears. All those things are the emotional connection. But I think we're talking about this interconnection, or the integration of the spiritual and the physical and the emotional and the relational all coming together here. But it takes somebody taking a bit of a risk and reaching out, and it takes that teaching their thing. And I love what you're doing here is you're not only exhibiting it yourself in terms of your actions you're taking, but you're also teaching people how to do it. And you have some courses in teaching and things I know that you work on here. And I know you work with like caregivers, that type of thing, and like hospital staffs, and that people who deal with a lot of pain and a lot of tragedy and health related and otherwise. What are you teaching them that helps them to help others?
Well, first is how to talk to strangers.
Yeah.
How to be comfortable approaching strangers and getting a little deeper with the people that we don't know. And I want to go back to one of the reasons that this is poignant for me is I read the Celestine Prophecy in the 90s.
Okay.
And one of the points in the book was, if someone makes eye contact with you, you want to make eye contact back and possibly have a conversation, because it's possible they have something to tell you that's important. And I do believe spirit talks through other people to us. So I feel like spirit flows through me during these joyful moments. And I'll tell you a couple, at least one more story. The whole tour of joy morphed a little bit. So one thing that happened was I was traveling, and I happened to be invited to someone's house, very good friends of mine, and I arrived right when they got a cancer diagnosis.
Okay.
And I said, Joy First is here to be your house cleaner, to be your cook, and you take care of your family and what you need to take care of. And that turned into 3 a.m. Driving to the hospital ER for a procedure that needed to be done in an emergent fashion twice. And I was there for the duration of the time they needed me. And then I went back on tour when the family started to come in and they had everything under control and they felt like, okay, the urgency now is gone. Now we're going to deal with the story that's coming from this. The other thing that's come out of this is suicide prevention and anti-bullying programs for schools, businesses, using improv, laughter yoga, and other modalities that support feeling joy, feeling compliments, feeling kindness, so that that can be repeatable. Because I think we've forgotten how to feel kindness.
Yeah.
All the division and all that what's been happening, I think part of us have lost that feeling in our hearts of kindness.
I love what you're sharing there, losing the feeling, but teaching what can be repeatable. And that kind of goes to developing, if you will, new muscles, new habits, new practices that we may not be used to, because so much of what the world teaches and gives us is bombarded by negativity and, all kinds of bad stuff that happens to us both personally and beyond, for the outside in. And what I'm hearing you say here is that we can have a little window into the soul here to teach people some stuff here. And that's what I love about this. And so teach me, if I wanted to bring joy to some people who are unhappy in my life, what are some of the habits that I need to have?
So first, we want to get in touch with our gut, because our gut is going to tell us what we need to do. For you, as the practitioner, you would start by making sure that you're elevated. So meditation, prayer, laughter, watching a funny program gets us in a state that is a little bit higher and more ready to give. And there's a person who's in the woo-woo field who says in 5D, if we believe in 5D consciousness, which is our next level of consciousness, everything's funny. And so I've had a theory that if we do laughter, we help ourselves raise up into a higher consciousness. And then we were more able to give. And when you arrive, it's not about cracking a joke. In fact, I want to share that I was sharing a lot of podcasts and comedy and things with my friends who were getting this diagnosis. It turns out they were each other's humor buddy. They were better than anyone else to bring humor into the situation on their own. And so after trying to see if I could be a humor buddy, I relinquished that responsibility and recognized that they were already so good at it. So if you're dealing with big diagnoses and very difficult things, you want to have a humor buddy. You want to have that person that's going to help you laugh and get past some of the difficulty. We want to have our feelings. That's really important. But then we also want to work our way up, back to a place where we can then be sharing with others.
I love what you're sharing there, because it has to do with the humor buddy is that joy first person who says, okay, I'm here to speak into your life. Humor and joy is a part of this, but mostly I'm here to be your buddy. I love that part of it, to be your buddy, like you talked about a little bit ago, about how, part of what you did to bring joy to people's life is take them to the hospital at 3 a.m. and maybe cook and clean or whatever it would be. Those bring joy too, and that's more of the sustained nature. I think there's a slight difference, a slight nuance between happiness, which kind of comes from the root word of is happenstance, which is kind of a momentary thing. Happiness is momentary in the sense of, we laugh at a joke, or we have a funny moment, or we have a happy moment. But joy is more of a sustained thing and more of a content type of thing. At least that's my understanding of it. That's the way I like to teach it. And but we need both, I believe. Do you speak on that a little bit to cut us a nuance between happiness and joy here?
So we can cultivate happiness by paying attention to our brain chemicals. And that's the endorphins and the serotonin and the dopamine, and lowering the cortisol. That can be done through exercise, through going and watching something funny, through prayer, through all of that. Happiness can be lasting, as positive psychology shows, and Seligman, but it takes effort. Joy can be found in awe and can be found in simply connecting with others. It's a sense of delight. And delight is the most important thing when you see it, to savor it. When we find ourselves in that moment that we say, wow, this is the greatest thing ever, and we're really feeling joyful, take 20 seconds. Look around, see where you are, take it in, all the details, for at least 20 seconds, because our brains will store it, and when we need it, we could revisit joy. We can go back to that place that we were at and feel it again.
Let's just go with you personally here for a second. Give me one of those moments that you referred to for your 20 seconds of joy. Give me one of those moments. You gave me a good story before about how you serve somebody. Give me some moment where you experienced that joy that you draw upon there.
I'm a huge fan of nature. And I believe water is far more powerful than we are aware of at the moment. And so I made sure that when I was soaking in the hot spring, that was this beautiful environment, that painted walls and foliage and Buddha and this 104-degree mineral water that's healing me. I take that and carry that with me. I do a lot of hot springs. I'm a hot spring fan.
There you go. That's awesome.
And I pray with the water, because we are learning it's possible that water has memory, and we remember that we are at least 70% water.
Yeah.
And so I did a lot of gratitude in that water and a lot of savoring, so that I can go back and feel what it's like to be in that hot spring, connected to spirit.
So for you, it's a hot spring, and for others, it might be a moment in nature. What, my wife and I just took a long hike on a fall day around a lake just a couple of days ago. Yeah. So that was a great nurturing thing, but it might be a moment with your grandchildren, or it might be some moment from memory of whatever, a high school reunion, or a moment when you were anything to draw upon, and that's a good thing, because what you're talking about here is this connection between the kind of the spiritual, the metaphysical, and the physiological here. It's all connected. You've spoken about it a couple times, but as we bring our conversation around here, you've mentioned several things about research and benefits, and I know that you're connected with therapeutic humor, AATH, American Association of Therapeutic Humor. Just tell us more about the importance that this is not just woo-woo stuff. This is, just give us a little hint about research and things of this nature, and then we're going to point people towards some practical places that they can go. That this is real stuff. Real science is involved here, right?
Real science. So what we've learned in the last couple of years from neurologists is your mind and body can't tell the difference between spontaneous laughter and laughing on purpose. So you get the same chemicals and benefits from whether you're watching a program and you're laughing at the program, or you're doing something like laughter yoga or laughter therapy. These things are really important because cortisol destroys our bodies and contributes to a lot of different illnesses. By reducing the cortisol on purpose, science is showing that we are able to stay healthier, feel healthier, be healthier, and who knows if we can't reverse some things. We know that Norman Cousins I'm going to Ankylosis spondylitis. I'm not going to get that right.
Yeah.
Ankylosing spondylitis. But he had a very painful spine disease.
You did a much better job than me in pronouncing that. Way to go.
Thank you. He wrote a whole book about how humor made such a big difference. And science is also showing us that laughter is more effective, 50% more effective than aspirin.
Awesome. Well, that's kind of what we like to talk about here in Cancer Comedy, how there's kind of two aspects of life, basically, that, kind of have the tragic and the drama of life. Then the drama of life, you have tragic things happen to us. It might be cancer. It might be, COVID. It could be, destructive things of any number of sorts. But the comedic side is the part where we look to see what is the lighter side, what is the brighter side, what is the possibilities that can happen. And you've shared those here with us here today. And so just to kind of bring us around, if people want to learn more about you, Katy, you obviously are a wealth of knowledge and experience for people who really want to be intentional. I think that's an important thing here. If people want to intentionally bring joy to their life or be the means to help bring joy to those that they know in their life who need a little happiness, need a little joy. How can people find out more about you? I know you're involved with several things. There's a couple of podcasts and so on. Tell us how people get in contact with you and maybe some resources that you might have that can speak into people's lives.
Sure. Yeah. So you can find me on Facebook at Kate McGlynn, McGlynn. And on my personal page, I often am posting talks or information about humor and about Joy First. And then the organization is Joy First Foundation, joyfirst.org. And you can search Katy Bee Joy for music. I've been making music that is yoga music. There's an album out right now called You Matter. And all of the lyrics, I write the lyrics and AI writes the music and the singing.
Okay.
But I have started singing also what's come out of AI. So it's kind of powerful, actually. Wow. And then I also have a YouTube channel, Katy Bee Joy Activation. So you can hear about humor. You can hear about ways to raise your vibration, if we use that terminology. And
sure.
And you can hear about science about water, science about humor, and science about what feels good and how to stay feeling good.
And she knows of what she speaks. She comes from a professional performer background, a professional clown, a performer, street performer, and with other organizations. So you can see what she has to offer in that regard, and that is wonderful. But also see that it's not just about the performance for you. I can tell it's about the transformation that you can bring to people's lives, and also the research. And I love that. So that's all that we're talking about here. Sure. We know we also have a podcast that you work on called the Laugh Box Podcast. And I understand, do you have your own podcast as well that you work on?
That right? Joy First Foundation also has a podcast.
Yes. So people.
Yeah, interviewing people that I've stopped and worked with about their experiences with Joy First and what it was like for them to be a Joy First ambassador. Very good.
We'll put links to all of these things at our podcast at cancerandcomedy.com. Well, Katy Bee, what a wonderful opportunity it has been to be in conversation with you. You have shared so much with our audience here, and I just want to kind of leave us with this thought. If you were going to kind of speak to that one person right now who's out there listening to us, who's just kind of in a bad place, and you wanted to give them that good thing that you say, I'm glad you're here on this earth. What would be your message to that one person who needs to hear your voice here today, here on this podcast?
So I want to give you a standing ovation, and I want to say thank you for being alive. I want to say you've made it this far. You got to keep going. You matter more than you know, especially if no one has told you that. Because your energy matters, what you say matters, what you hear matters. And so if we can go through life understanding the effect that we have on others, then we get to bring someone joy and receive joy at the same time, which is incredibly powerful. And thank you for living through all the stuff that you've lived through so far. And thanks for flying around on this crazy blue marble with me.
I'm inspired by hearing that, and I thank you for sharing that because I'm just taking it to heart myself. Anyway, thank you for being with us. Our guest today here at Cancer and Comedy, Kate McGlynn, also known as Katy Bee. You can find her among many other places at joyfirst.org. Katie, thanks for being our guest today on Cancer and Comedy.